All right, hello everyone, and welcome to episode number 27 of Verdicts of the Ancient Kings, trying to catch Roadrunner. And I'm sorry, Nico, you're gonna have to tell me what exactly that means. It's too late in the evening for me to try and decipher that particular title.
Basically, just the game is moving super fast. So, we're going to have to get more creative, get more accurate products if we want to keep up the metas, if we want to keep up with our collections. There's just so much going on in Hex right now.
Yeah, I feel like I stopped playing Constructed for a week and I came back and it was like 14 different new decks that all had different tech and trying to look at my reserves. It was an absolute nightmare because I was playing limited so hard. But we'll get to that. We have a lot to talk about, or a little to talk about, depending on how long you feel like we've been on a particular break. But let's go ahead and jump straight into last week's particular puzzle, or 2 weeks ago's particular puzzle. And silly me, there were actually two particular solutions. I was trying to get a little bit fancy with your opponent's board, the Vampire Queen and the two Vampire Child, trying to make it something that you would actually see in limited play. The real crux of the problem was supposed to be there's three large troops on the other side that are difficult to deal with. How do you get around it? But we will give credit to both solutions. So let's go ahead and dive right into it first. Opponent's board is a Vampire Queen and two Vampire Children. They have 18 life and 0 of 6 resources, assuming that they just played the Vampire Queen. Your board is 5 of 5 resources, 3 blood, 2 ruby. You have 2 cards in hand and 1 dreadling in your crypt. And you're supposed to win on your turn. And there was actually the two solutions were really utilizing Scrounge. Scrounge is something that you saw on the Crimson Slayers. The Crimson Slayers, if you were able to scrounge twice, you were able to easily get that 18 damage. The key question was, how do you do it? How do you get additional troops back into your crypt? You obviously needed some troop generation, and Explosion and Cremate worked very well. Explosion, the Vampire Queen, you get 3 Dreadlings. You then sack one of the dreadlings to the Kuru infiltrator so that you can cremate one of the vampire children while scrounging again. And even though one of the vampire childs is able to block, the crush damage is still enough to deal that final 18. Why don't you go ahead and describe the intended solution, Nico?
Yeah, sure. So the intended solution was pretty neat when that Kura came up with. It was basically just playing the Rust Bucket Distractor. And this is where we thought that you'd have a better understanding of the actual Scrounge mechanic, because Scrounge actually stacks. So if you played the Rust Bucket Distractor and scrounged it using the Wood Dreadling and the Crypt, you could then target one troop. But then you could also, once it's in your graveyard, you can tomb swap it to get a second Dreadling to get it back into play after sacrificing with Koru. And when you have it back, it already has one of the scrounge effects on it. So when you scrounge a second time, you get to target 2 more troops. So playing the Rust Bucket Distractor the second time, using the tomb swap Dreadling that's created that you sacrifice for the second scrounge trigger, would allow you to target all 3 of the vampires in play. And then because you scrounge twice, your Crimson Slayers and Corey would be able to swing in for 18 exactly.
Yeah, so 2 possible solutions. I don't know if there were any others out there, and hopefully all of our viewers go ahead and gave it a shot. Since there was twice the number of solutions out there, hopefully you guys either thought up of it and you guys decided, you know what, we'll let someone else try and win, even though the winner was once again Than, and the runner-ups MNA Land and PJ Veeder. I'll be sending you guys some codes as well. Probably send you some convocation codes, and I don't know, is there anything that Fan needs from me? Like, I don't feel like I can actually swipe anything from the Hex headquarters that he hasn't already won once.
Yeah, you might be just running a mafia ring, just making money, protecting families. I don't know. but
Yeah.
he's won a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's won a lot of stuff. Maybe he's going infinite off of watching our particular podcast and video. And well,
Good for him.
yeah, good for
More
him.
people should enter.
Yeah, definitely. So, if you guys out there are like, you know what, we need to find ways to get more plat, definitely, spend the 5-10 minutes to go ahead and take a look at our puzzles of the week and come up with a solution and see how you do. All right, so it has been 2 very, very long weeks since we last came, and a lot happened. We had our first clash. We had a platinum plunder. We had some immortal tournaments, and it really feels like everything is happening so quickly, and there just seems to be so many different decks out there where you're not quite sure what to expect when you're playing. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at some of the decks that won or were in the top 8 of each of these particular tournaments. First, we have a Clash top 8 deck. Why don't you go ahead and dive right into it, Nico?
Sure. So these are 2 different decks. One is from Sins, who was an 8-win, 1-loss in 9 rounds of Clash. The other one, I believe, was from Freud, which was also 8 wins, 1 loss in Clash. They're top 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing that I noticed first off about Sin's deck is he's actually running the 41 card medley. So he's one of the believers of having the 41 card deck with 17 shards and 24 cards. I actually counted all the shards, so don't worry, there are 24 actual playables and 41 actual cards. But what is interesting to me that stood out for both of these decks is, again, Conscript is rearing its head. Like, Conscript is pretty valuable if you want to be able to get to that high number of wins. So you're going to want some RNG in your favor. And you can see how there's, the Mooncall Ceremony, the Cheap Shots, the Power and Pains. And there wasn't like a real huge bomb in either one of the decks. I would say that it's a pretty well synergistic deck. He is playing Ada, which is one of probably the top 3 champions in this limited meta.
Mm-hmm.
And he has some really good removal. He also, what I thought was interesting for him choosing to play 41 cards and only 17 shards is that he does have 2 Drained Souls, which are higher into the curve, but he has all of his 5+s as key removal cards. And then he has a lot of evasion built in his earlier curve. So it's kind of troop heavy, removal heavy early game with the removal heavy late game. So he was probably able to just use evasion to win through removal alone. If you actually look at his troops, he doesn't have too many troops, but the troops that he does have are very good.
Yeah, the high value troops, the Cruel Venom Blades, the Mind Rack Sorcerers, those one attack lethal troops, or the Scrounge lethal 5/4 on the Cruel Venom Blade, those can get very, very, very deadly and very difficult to get around. So also opening up a Daughter of the Poet, always a good thing if you look at Sin's deck right there. So
yeah, well, that is a bomb. And the Soul Speaker Revenant is also very good, where it has Diligence Trigger when it readies, put a troop from the crypt into your hand, and it gets all socketed powers of this. So that's a way to keep going. Both his Daughter and his Soul Speaker gave him ways to bring troops back into play, which I guess is pretty helpful if you're not playing too many to begin with.
Yeah, well, one thing that kind of took me by surprise, but I really like, was the use of the Diamond's Favor. Diamond's Favor was actually main decked here, and this is more of what I would call just understanding the meta. If you look at the deck on the bottom, the big bomb that everyone is constantly worried about is the Surging Wildfire. If you haven't been on the receiving end of a turn 5 swinged Wildfire, those can get very big very quickly. Surging Wildfire, if you don't know, it's a 4-cost Rage 1 speed, and its game tech says when this attacks, it deals its attack damage to the opposing champion. Well, when paired with Grandfather Elk, you're going to give it +3/+3 and crush that turn. And if you, for some reason, play a Pharaoh Root Tactics or a Blitz on the same turn as well, all of a sudden you're dealing close to 9 unblockable damage in addition to the actual Surging Wildfire with Crush. So that's very difficult to deal with. And one of the ways to deal with it is a Diamond's Favor, where your opponent randomly sacrifices a troop with 5 defense or higher. And normally at that situation, the Surging Wildfire does in fact have 5 defense.
Yeah, and Diamond's Favor, actually, at least from what I've seen in Limited, is if I ever open that up and I'm deciding to play Diamond at all, I will always include it, because there are many cards that I want to remove, especially with the set 5 combined with set 6, because it also hits constants. And the +3 defense combat trick is huge as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of little things going on with that card that can really provide extended value when you're playing against a limited deck in this format. But yeah, moving on to the Grandfather Elk pool, yeah, like you mentioned, Surging Wildfire is a beast. And then you can see that he's kind of going all in on that strategy with Grandfather Elk and then Feral Root Tactics. And he doesn't have Blitz, but Blitz is also another good one to combo with that. He also had pretty good removal. He also had a Righteous Outlaw, which is a nice rare.
Yes.
But other than that, his pull was just kind of mediocre, but he had some of the really insanely good conscript cards, like the Eager Lackey and Battle Preparations. And he even had the Earth Mother that could help with ramp to get to those resources you need to kind of combo off the Surging Wildfire. I'm kind of surprised that a deck like this went 8-1, because, like, to me, there's just some things in this list that kind of fall short. But I guess he does also have the Rollicking Reveler. That's also a good card. And it's kind of just mixing up a bunch of stuff that are decent with some decent prioritization on removal, like Crossing Swords, Crackling Clash, Fire in the Hole, Explosive Interlude. That probably pushed him into the winning seed as he played on. Because I think some people that build decks go very troop heavy and they don't think about prioritizing that removal, but it is important to get consistent best of 3 wins in the format.
Yeah, combat tricks always nice. It feels like the way I'm looking at this deck, you're like, he can't have another combat trick, and it just seems that, oh, he has one more. Rise to the Challenge and Deadeye Marksman are the only 2 cards that feel a little bit out of place to me. If I think Rise to the Challenge is what I think it is, it's the give a troop speed and +2/+2.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean, he could have made some good use of that with cards like Thorn Weaver, that could give him a bunch of resource rent for the turn. And then, maybe play something like the Rollicking Reveler that is, I think, a 5/4 natural with Crush. Another good target for Grandfather Elk as well. But, just having that extra speed could actually get the win. Even a Siegesaurus with speed could be pretty crazy, and Grandfather Elk charge. So he has some real big threats that if he's able to give it speed and crush, it could definitely steal a win from his opponent.
Yeah, generally when I'm looking at sealed deck right now, or any deck, there's 2 ways to build, I would say, a deck in Limited. You can just take a look at your cards and see if your cards, you can make the deck better than the sum of its parts. A lot of, like, and what I mean by that is a lot of synergy, like the Surging Wildfire, the Blitzes, being able to generate a lot of Dreadlings, Diligence, and then having like Consult the Talon so that you can draw 3 cards on turn 3. Those types of things are, the sum of the parts is better than the cards themselves. What it looks like here is he just chose the best cards in his packs for those shards, and they work together and sometimes that's what you need. You just need consistent quality sometimes. And hats off to him for not trying to overcomplicate the matter and go, you know what? Sometimes simple is best.
Yeah. So it was just a brief look at Clash. A lot of amazing decks, but it's hard to break down limited pools in terms of why is this better than someone else's 23 card pile.
Yeah.
But Clash seems to be popular. I think they also patched the game on Sunday, and they fixed the large-scale tournaments because I did play in the Platinum Plunder, which we'll talk about in a second, and I crashed at the start of every round. But apparently they fixed some of those issues with larger tournaments and the crashing. So hopefully now going forward, all of the large tournaments will fire off without a hitch.
Yeah, and just to give a shout out on the state of the game and the health of the game, I believe there was like 435 players in the first clash, and then there was like 240 or 235 in the second clash. So still really strong numbers, especially as I know some people are traveling due to spring break and the Easter season being amongst us. So still 200 plus people were able to set aside 9 hours on a Sunday to go ahead and clash it up. All right, moving right along, and we're talking about different, like, it feels like this particular rotation, with the revitalization of Limited Set 6 being so great, and then we also had the Immortal Cup and Immortal Tech, and I don't get to play a lot of Immortal. It feels already daunting enough to try to keep up in standard. So what can you tell us about this Ruby Cup Immortal from the 5-shard tournament?
So one of the coolest things about the Ruby Cup Immortal is, even though I didn't really follow it or build a deck for it, a few people in our Cornerstone group played, and actually the first and second place happened to be two people in our group. So Sadistic here was second place, and I believe Metronome was first place, and we'll look at his deck in a second. But they had two really interesting decks. I think probably the most interesting thing about Sadistic's deck is he's like, you know what? I don't need troops. So he played a deck with no troops in it. He was Takahiro, and he was solely relying on insane Dreadling tech through a bunch of different cards, but mainly Zorath's Rectory. And the real interesting thing about his deck in Zorath's Rectory is he split the shards, the gems on those cards. So I think either 2 or 3 of the Zorath's Rectories had the ramp gem on it, and then 1 or 2 had the Rhinoceros gem on it, because this is Immortal and you can play with the old gems. So
that's hilarious.
Things that if they got through, they were creating Rhinoceroses that are 3/3s with Crush, and they're permanently staying in play. So these little itsy bitsy Dreadlings were making these giant Crush armies while he was ramping resources. And then to top it all off, if he gets an Oberon's Eulogy in play, then he's getting these giant Dreadlings and these giant Rhinos with +X based on how much is in his graveyard or crypt, and then also having Crush. So he was able to overwhelm his opponents fairly early, and then Horrors of War, because it's forcing your opponent to sacrifice, is going to get rid of any threat that you can't target.
And what's really what I really like about this particular deck, now you pointed out that he is not running troops, is like everyone is running some sort of removal, some sort of how am I going to deal with your bombs? Transmogrified, Hero Fall, like Kill, all of those cards, Crocosaur, all of those cards are out there specifically to try and deal with the main way you deal damage in Hex, which is attacking with troops. And by making your 8 of your opponent's cards that are not resources completely dead in the water, it has a higher chance of your opponent drawing dead sometimes, which is rather ingenious at this stage.
Yeah, I think I was watching the final game of Metronome against him, and Metronome had a From the Ashes and then 2 Hero Falls in his hand. He's like, do I use a Hero Fall on a Dreadling? Is it really worth it? So, there's not going to be any other Dreadlings in the deck. Sadistic does have a few troops. Like you can see in his sideboard, he has Carnosaurus, and then he has 2 Ruiners in the main list. But for the most part, it's a troopless deck. So anyone that's playing against him would more than likely slide out all of the troop-based removal to try to find ways to deal with all of the constants that are coming into play.
Yeah, which is funny because the one card that it couldn't deal with is probably Rollicking Reveler, but that's what the hero falls are there for, to try and make sure the Reveler doesn't shut down this particular deck. But yeah, it looks like a fun deck. The amount of ramp, Horrors of War, Extinction, it just feels like it feels like a Ling rush. Just wipe the board and then rush with Lings and do it again.
Yep, spawning pool on 7.
Yep, 7 pool. All right, following up, we do have a Metronomies 5 Shards Ruby Cup Immortal tech. And I believe the Gemborn Prowler ended up being the key tech in dealing with Sadistic's particular brew, correct?
Well, you would think, because it's the perfect kind of sideboard card to it. I need to look at and read Closed Coffins, but Metronomy actually brought in Closed Coffins and played it against Sadistic. I don't know if it hits everything or just troops. It must hit everything. But he also brought in Closed Coffins against Sadistic. I don't think he drew any of his Gemborn Prowlers in the consecutive 2 games that were played, but he was able to win anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the most interesting thing about Metronomy's list was at how synergistic he was able to make it, just based around troop recursion. And one of the ways he did that was he ran Forgotten Monarch with the old Blood Double Threshold gem. That is a major gem that says, when you deal combat damage with this, take a troop from your crypt and put it back into your hand. So he ran that with speed. So he used Forgotten Monarch as like a combat troop to play and quickly get a troop back from his crypt. And that was very important for him in a few of the games he played. He was also running his Underworld Crusaders with the Life Drain gem, which is another one to remember from the old rotation. So it was interesting because he could chump block with the troop and then gain health, and then before he lost health to draw extra cards. So a lot of the times Metronomy was cycling his Underworld Crusaders from the crypt back into play, and that was allowing him to draw the cards he needed.
I'm trying to remember the wording on Underworld Crusader. Does it say when this dies, this deals 2 damage to you?
Yes. So when it dies, it deals 2 damage.
But it heals. But it heals
because
you
have heal for 4 if it's dying through a block, because it had a Life Drain gem. So I think also like you're saying, the 2 damage was being negated because of the Life Drain gem.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so it's just very, very interesting seeing all of these cards work in ways, just because gem rotation being what it is. It's Underworld Crusaders with Life Drain gems, and Runir Heiferfonts with Spell Shield once again, the nightmare that is a growing threat. But it looks as though Cornerstone did fairly well. I actually am sad that I wasn't there to be able to watch everything that was going on, but it moves on to, if you guys do enjoy Hex, make sure you're part of a community. You don't have to be part of Cornerstone, but really being a part of a vocal community where there's a little bit of familiarity, where you can talk to other players and test out deck ideas, things like that. It really makes it a little bit more fun. It's kind of like going to your local brick and mortar store on Friday night and seeing the same faces over and over, and then getting to know each other. So if you guys have been playing Hex for a while and don't know anyone, definitely check out some of the communities out there. Obviously, we believe some are better than others, but that is for you to decide.
And also, just a big shout out, like all these slides are pulled together from Fred's site called hexpvptools.net. Mm-hmm. And he does a great job of pulling information from the API and presenting it to you in such an easy way to be able to look at all the cards in the particular deck, track ladder stats for constructed and limited. Mm-hmm. So definitely recommend checking out Fred's site. Again, it's hexpvptools.net. And I'll probably link it when we post this video later.
Yep. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to the Platinum Plunder. Another top 8 deck here. It looks as though it is an Intrepid Conjurer, Valor-based deck. War-Torn General being, well, the absolute powerhouse that we know he is, the Righteous Outlaw. And this just looks like a lot of 3 and 4 ofs that would do fairly well.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things about this particular deck, I'm sorry, my talkie was writing in chat. So this particular deck is that it has a very explosive early game, and that actually is very important against some of the more prominent picks in the meta now, like the Sapphire Dredling deck, because the Sapphire Dredling deck has to ramp up, but by the time it ramps up to the win by like turn 4 or 5, this deck could already have your board controlled and have an overwhelming board state to defeat you with. And one of the interesting things about this particular list is the use of the Exalted Knight, because the Exalted Knight completely shuts down Underworld themed decks and Dredling themed decks, because all of those troops will enter play exhausted. So it just breaks Dredling tech 100%.
All right. Exalted Knight, for those of you guys who do not know, is a 4-cost 4/3 Diamond Ruby. I believe it has speed and steadfast. Yeah. And it says opposing Underworld troops enter play exhausted. So they're not going to be able to block you, and being able to get one additional turn or one additional swing is maybe all you really need to squeak out that little bit of damage, or set up your Lasgar's Vengeance on the following turn to be able to wipe his board.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a little bit better than that even. It's opposing non-Ardent troops. So any troop that's not Ardent.
Oh, I thought it was, non-Ardent, so like Bride of the Dams and...
Yeah.
Ooh.
Dark Cards, anything.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember, out of the 5, like I guess the Matriarch set, 2 are Ardent, 1 is Underworld, and 2 are factionless? Or is it 2?
Yeah, the Empress of Ice and the Bride of the Dam are factionless.
And somehow Necrotic or Underworld only got 1, which is the Matriarch of Flame?
Yeah, correct.
All right. Well, I don't know, a little bit of trivia for anyone out there. Now, moving on. So, well, Nico and I wanted to talk about what are your reasons for playing Hex, and what's your motivation to come back week after week, and just sitting down and playing, because it can get a little bit tiresome. It can get a little bit grueling. But what makes you guys want to come back? And Nico listed some of the things that that brings him back and brings a lot of the Cornerstone Guild back. So why don't you go through the list and we'll just break it down step by step.
Yeah, I mean, and this is more like, from, Crota and I, we were trying to do this every week, but like at the same time, we're like, man, there's just so much going on in life. And then, Hex is becoming huge, and it's hard for us to keep up. So, I just, think to myself a lot of the time, like, why do I keep coming back to Hex? What makes it so entertaining for me? And like, what do I think, other people look for in this game as well? And, not all of these things here might represent like how I view the game, but maybe things that, entice other people to play. And I'm just curious, like, what is it that you guys like? Is it, or do you simply play Hex because of the fun factor? Like, do you love the TCG sandbox? Do you like an evolving meta? Do you enjoy the PvE content that, allows you to do things that you couldn't do in any other game, like use equipment that changes the way a card will work? Are you in it because you want to succeed and maybe even make a little bit of money on the side, maybe through trading third party, or maybe getting involved in esports when they're available for Hex? Do you actively stream? Like, are achievements a big deal for you? Do you like beating content that other people have a hard time beating and being the first one to do it? Do you like winning large tournaments or small tournaments? And does that like push you to keep playing, or do you just like collecting and trying to get a full set of a particular card or a set? And then there's, the social aspect. Do you enjoy playing Hex because there are people there that you like hanging out with? Do you enjoy communicating with people and haggling and trading, and or do you just like using their chat, which probably will improve over time? And then there's other things like competitiveness. Like, are you just here because the competitive nature of a TCG is where you want to be, and Hex has a great competitive ladder and tournaments for you to play in? Or are you here for the replayability because there's always going to be new sets, there's always new content, there's always new meta, there's always new things to try in PvE? Is the replayability what is keeping you around? So we'd be interested to hear. I mean, you guys could send us a mail or respond to us on YouTube or something like that. Just, it's always nice to know, like, why people are enjoying the game and what motivates you to keep playing, so that we can always look back and be motivated by things that when maybe we're in a lull, we're like, oh yeah, but that is a great aspect of Hex.
Yeah, I know for me, one of my reasons that I want to play is there's this drive that I want to build as much of the collection just through my own personal merit by winning games. Like early on, well, unfortunately, I do get a little bit of an advantage in seeing some of the cards and seeing some of the interactions early on, and trying to take that and being the first one to discover some sort of cool combo that works in limited. I know the first time I did like 22 damage in a single turn with Surging Wildfire, I felt absolutely on top of the world, only to have it done to me 3 times in the following games. You're just like, oh, this is what it feels like. And it's those two extremes. It's the joy of victory for me, and like the agony of defeat. There are going to be those times where RNG gets the best of you, and there's going to be those times where you go, do I mulligan this hand? There's 2 shards, but and it feels like each of your decisions, you actually have a little bit of an outcome. And RNG is gonna rear its ugly head, but it's still fun over the long haul. So, and it's one of the reasons why I keep on coming back. And I gotta say, the community out there is probably one of the best as well. I haven't run into too many toxic players, and it makes me surprised when I play other games where you can't talk to your opponent, and you're like, why wouldn't you be able to talk to your opponent? And then it's those team games and those MOBAs, and then you see the infighting that happens, and you're like, oh, this is toxic, and we're on the same team. So yeah, hats off to Hex and Hex Entertainment for making a game that people enjoy playing, as opposed to people enjoy or they hate to lose, or they play it and get upset more afterwards. I'm not quite sure how that works, but yeah, hats off to Hex, and thank you to everyone at Hex. If you guys are watching this, hopefully I'll see you soon. But yeah, that's for another time.
Yeah. So yeah, let us know what motivates you guys. There are times where, even myself, like last week, I was thinking like, oh man, all this new stuff, I can't seriously collect entire sets anymore. Like, this is too much work. But, at the end of the day, I'm still going to try to play as much limited as possible and get close to a full play set, and, play decks that I want to play. So I'll find ways to get the cards for those decks. But, there's times where the motivation to play can wane. And I think that's understandable. It's games like this where new content needs to come out before you get re-energized to play are very common. I even playing some Path of Exile on the side, and that can get stale after a while. So it's just remembering why you're enjoying what you're enjoying, and try to stop before you stop enjoying it completely, so that you can come back at another point and enjoy it again.
Yeah, and with the way they've been, cranking out the sets, it's only been 6 weeks since we've had Scars of War. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's only been 6 weeks.
It feels like Scars of War has like I don't even remember what drafting was like before Scars of War. It feels like there's so much happening in this particular limited pool. It feels great, and yeah, like the fact that like you could actually draft a Diamond Sapphire in Scars of War when you wouldn't do it at all in Hero Fall. The viability of so many different types of games, like I don't know it. I don't know, it feels really energizing to me. Hopefully, it won't get stale, but I do know when we come back in 2 weeks, we'll probably be like, when's the next set coming out? When are we going to be starting to get previews, or when's that next PVE content? So, yeah, we always want more, but at the same time, enjoy what you have, and don't always like expect more, and enjoy that toy, even though it might be a little old or feel a little old.
True.
All right, so moving on to our puzzle for the week. This one is brought to you by Nico. So you are playing in PvP Standard Constructed, and Nico, why don't you go ahead and take this one?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of words here, but basically, believe that you're playing the Sapphire Dreadling deck, basically, but you put in one card that you're using as secret tech that differs from the standard meta deck. So the board state is your opponent has a ready Empress of Ice in play and a ready Tribunal Magistrate and 2 Dreadlings. They also have 2 Blood Threshold and 3 Sapphire Threshold, and they're at 7 HP. They just Horrors of War you for 2. He sacrifices both of his Dreadlings. The puzzle begins for you before Horrors of War resolves. You're Uzu, and you have 0 out of 3 resources, 2 charges, 5 cards in hand, 4 Sapphire Threshold. You have 3 exhausted troops in play, a Skirting Cultivator, a Warp Steel Shardsworn, and a Depth Crawler. And your job is to win on your turn. What do you sacrifice? What are the 3 cards left in your hand, and what do you draw for the turn, and the sequencing. So this puzzle is meant to be basically similar to what Crota's been doing, is something a little bit more relevant, something that you might run across in an actual game, and basically look at the Sapphire Dreadling deck if you're not familiar with it. See what kind of cards are there. Obviously, you're because Horrors of War was just played, you're going to be a little. You're going to have to lose some things in play. You're going to have to lose, some things in your hand. But there is a solution to this puzzle, and I hope you guys can figure it out. So send solutions my way.
All right, so from all of us at Cornerstone Guild and from me and Nico, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Definitely say hi to us if you happen to come across us on the ladders. I'm pretty talkative unless I'm having a really, really bad RNG run. But yeah, definitely say hi to us. I'm sure Nico would do the same. And we hope to see you out there on the ladders.
Yeah, I'll say hi. And if you can't get me in chat, whisper me. I'll probably see it later and send you back a message. All right, guys. See you next time.
See you next time.